All right, welcome back to the Patch Pod with Pauline, but
Well, I'm here too.
with Pauline and with Caroline. Well, thanks for joining us again on the second episode. Yeah,
It's great to be back on another day.
no, we do this all the time. So probably
know.
all listeners know that we record 2 episodes at a time in one sitting. So like we always try to just move our head around or.
I put my hair on a different location. I took off my hat.
Yeah, Caroline is completely on it. Yeah. So with last episode with Caroline, we obviously talked about the work-life balance side of things. And I think listening to Caroline talk about a lot of different aspects of the business all the time, I think one thing definitely we would learn so much about from you is probably about your mini session. And I think mini session would be something, if anyone can do it, I think it would be a way to really scale up their business, but that would also help in terms of the work-life balance as well. I think that's probably the sort of like the goal for a lot of people, like trying to make it efficient enough that you can really, make so much money in like one weekend and be okay to make this decision on different freedom of decision and things like that on all the other things as well. And I think probably if we were to think about people doing mini session, probably Caroline is the master of the mini session, right?
Yeah.
So how many do you do a year? Like 2?
I do it twice a year. Yeah. And we make a total of like 6 figures just on those two. Yeah. Those 2 events. Yeah.
And you do in one, like when you do 2 events, is it just one day or is it 2
No,
days?
sometimes it's multiple. So for example, we just did our spring mini session. Like I had to do it early because of all this travel lined up. But there was a lot of people who weren't able to get in on time. And so then now looking at my schedule, I'm like, oh, okay, I can open up another like encore day. So sometimes it might be 2 weekends. Holidays are really busy. So holidays we'll do Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then if time permits, we might open a second weekend for it. And then spring usually is just one weekend. But usually we do Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And just given my schedule, we were only able to do Saturday, Sunday this time. So we're short one day usual. So that's why we sold out as well. And then, so now we're opening up one more day for it.
And then for spring one, you just market it for like a Mother's
Day. Yeah, I've done a few. Like it started off as Mommy and Me, actually. To take it real far back, it used to be called Mommy and Me. And it actually started as a photography class.
Wow.
Yeah, the concept was like, come with your kids, learn how to use your camera. And then like, we'll photograph each other after with your new skill. And people really loved the class. Oh, I know. Mom, come to the class. At the end of the class, partner, bring baby, and then let's practice photographing your baby. Yeah. So it was fun. Like, a lot of families got to meet each other. Moms learning how to use her camera, which is cute too. But it was like, well, one, it's hard to predict what the kids, like, you can't say, okay, everyone come at 2 p.m. Like, so, yeah. So some of that didn't work out so logistically, right? And people had kids of all ages. And then there was also a lot of people who were like, I just want to learn how to use the camera. Like, can I just come? I don't have kids after. So then I've since recorded that class, and now it's called How Do I Use This Fancy Camera? People fell into 2 groups. They either just want to learn how to use the fancy camera, so that's why I recorded that class. Or there's like, just make pictures of me and my baby. Yeah. So then that's kind of how the Mommy and Me portraits came about. And that was really sweet. It was just mom and babies. It's since expanded. I've started to really encourage bringing grandparents now. So back then it used to be very mom-centric. And again, that's because that was me, right? Like given my life experience at the time, that's what I could relate to, right? Being a mom wanting kids with your little babies. Yeah. And then as I went through more life and just realizing how precious the relationship between my kids and my parents are, and also realizing that just as fast as these kids are growing, my parents are aging at the same rate as well. And, it's like, I feel like life is kind of like that, right? So like this is going at the same slope as this,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's sad, but it's reality too, right? So I started to like really wanted to document my parents with my kids as well. So that's how the mini sessions came about, like just really encouraging people to come in with their parents, with grandparents, the multi-generation thing. And the mini session makes it easy because it's short and quick. And most of these people just want quick portraits. They don't need like the full hour session anyway. But at the same time, like, I don't want to just take up a regular work day of my life just to do a 15-minute session for somebody, right? So it needs to be efficient. So that's why now I do like 25 sessions in one day. And then also, like the previous episode, I talked about how I don't shoot weekends unless you're going to pay me wedding rate. It's hard for one person to meet my wedding rate. But if we can get 25 sessions in, right? So it's like a collective way of getting a weekend date in.
So how long does it take you to do 25 sessions? Like,
They're 15 minutes, scheduled 20 minutes apart. So 5-minute break. So there's three per hour. Yeah.
okay, that's still okay. Wow, that's a long day still.
It is. And when I didn't have any assistant, when I shot myself, I did it with no break. I went straight from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., no break. And the first year, like I hired an intern, and like it was an intern who wanted to learn from me. So I brought her on the shoot. And then that's when I was like, this is inhumane. But when it's myself, I don't think about that, because I can hustle all day and be fine with it. I have the endurance, and my incentive is knowing that I don't have to shoot for the rest of the month.
Yeah.
So I plow through it. And then with seeing her, I was like, oh, you poor thing. Like, I need to feed you. So now we have lunch break scheduled in.
So other than the spring one, what's the other one?
Holiday. Yeah, the holiday is like our big seller. And there's a lot of families who do both. And usually the difference is holiday tends to be more like nuclear family focused, and holiday card focused. And then the spring one, I make it really more about like the generational and, different outfits too, different vibe. Like the holiday sets tend to be very holiday, so it's not as timeless, but it's great for holiday cards. The spring one is more timeless.
So how are they packaged? Like, do you sell photography only, or do you sell like with albums or like with art, like wall art?
Albums. The different, so I have a free course called business, no, sorry. I know, too many. I'm like, what are we doing? No, I have a free course called Mini Session Crash Course. So in this free course, I go over just like the logistics of how, why I started it, why it's awesome. Like for some people who are not on board, I do hear a lot of photographers like, I don't want to offer mini sessions. There's a misconception that mini sessions are discounted sessions, right? When in fact, my mini sessions actually cost more than my regular sessions. The only difference is that it's shorter. I have a really good life example about this. So when I bought my first home, it had popcorn ceiling, and I wanted to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So we got a quote, and they wanted $900 to do 3 rooms. And we're like, $900? Like, do it ourselves. So, we got my brother-in-law roped into this, and the 3 of us climbed up ladders, and it took us an entire day to do the smallest of the rooms. After that, we're like, this is not worth it. Okay, fine. Like, we'll pay the $900. They came in, they did it in an hour. And my initial reaction was like, I paid them $900 for 1 hour of work? But actually, that 1 hour of work would have taken me 3 days, right? So there's actually value, and I think there's actually greater value in someone being able to do it efficiently. When I started training new photographers, what I realized was that what I can achieve in 15 minutes took her 45 minutes to do the same work. So just because I could do it fast, why does that need to be cheaper, right? Because that took me 10 years to develop that skill. And because I can do it faster, I actually should charge you more for it because I'm saving you time now, right? Like, so same thing with construction. It's like paying someone express fees, right? Like paying someone to do the same 3 days work versus a one hour job. you would pay the person who could do 1 hour more money.
The same as like the guy, if they stayed probably like 3 hours instead of 1 hour, then you probably have to stay home longer.
Yeah.
So you won't be able to do anything else, right?
Yep, exactly. So there's actually greater value in being able to do it more efficiently. And that's what I realized, like just because I can shoot fast doesn't mean like I'm only going to, but it just means that my hourly rate is worth more now because I can achieve that much more in an hour, right? When I teach people how to do mini sessions, you don't have to do it in 15 minutes. You might not be ready yet. So I also have like another like free challenge, like 15-minute portrait challenge. It's just to see, can you shoot in 15 minutes? And then I teach you the skills you need to be able to do that. But when you first start, your mini sessions might be half hour. That's okay, right? But what's key is knowing what the deliverables need to be and then do a test shot, see how long it takes. And maybe you schedule half hour to give yourself buffer, but don't let yourself shoot the whole half hour. Make yourself finish in 20 minutes, right? If you finish early, great. You just have longer breaks in between. But if you have a difficult client, you don't have to stress. You know that there's time to, save your butt, right? And then as you get more and more comfortable, you can start making it more efficient. You can cut it down maybe, to now that you can consistently shoot in 20 minutes, maybe now it's like, can I shoot in 15 minutes? Then you can start shortening that buffer time in between.
So I actually did a mini session last year for the very first time. I wasn't planning to do it. I mean, I was planning at the beginning of the year, but as probably like all the photographers know, last year was just crazy. And there was no time for me to like plan what kind of backdrop I want, where I'm going to do it, all that kind of stuff. So like, I was like, yeah, I just won't do it this year. I'll probably just do it next year. And then the last minute, there was this studio they already had a backdrop for like Christmas theme and all that. So I was like, I can kind of just test it out this year. Like, even if we don't get any clients or something, like I can just invite some families that we know and then do a test shoot. I don't know if you ever hear this from any other photographers, but I found that because you already have perfect lighting, you're in one spot, 15 minutes is really long.
It is. It is. And it is. So, like there's some families I'm done in 5 minutes. And especially because the way I package it, it's very concise. I tell them, you get 7 photos, right? So the mistake that I used to do is like, it wasn't clear. And then I felt like I was starting to shoot a lot. And like in the crash course, I also go over like the difference, like how you have to differentiate. One other misconception or common mistake is that people think that mini sessions are going to cannibalize regular sessions. Like, well, why would I book a full session if I could book a mini session? But they're actually very different, and the kind of photos I deliver are different, and the number of photos especially are different. And you have to have those clear boundaries. So for my clients, I explain very clearly what the difference is. So I have clients who do both. Like this recent mini session, for example, 2 of the clients who came in, I literally saw them 2 weeks before the mini session for a regular session. And then they still came in for a mini session, and they come in every 2 times for a mini session, right? So I had just saw them 2 weeks before that, and then I just saw them 2 months before that for regular session. Yeah, and then for the holiday session, like a month before that, right? So I'm seeing them a lot, which is great. Like that relationship is like so special.
How did it come to the number 7 though? 7.
How did I come up with that? Oh, I know. Average family of 4. So you have 1 of each kid, mom with the kids, other parent with the kids. Yeah. And then 3 versions of everyone together. That's how I got to 7.
Good number, yeah.
Yeah. There's usually like a logic when I create it, and I sometimes forget why. But yes, that one I did have.
That's why I wanted to. I'm sure you have that.
Oh, the other thing, yes, 15 minutes is a very long time. If I have a very difficult child, I might need the whole 15 minutes. There was one family, for example, it took her 10 minutes to warm up. So by the time she was warmed up, we had 5 minutes left to shoot. Because I said 7, I got the 7. We were fine, right? However, some kids come in warmed up, and I'm done in the first 5. So what do? In the past, it felt weird cutting them off because I said it was a 15-minute session, right? So what I started doing is I would just keep shooting. And in the past, I would feel obligated to give it to them. And then now I've just cannibalized my own full session because I essentially gave them a full session. What I started to do is, because I only promised them 7, I actually charge them extra for the additional photos now. So you get to pick 7 that you want to keep. And then if you want more, you can pay a la carte for them. And that's worked out really nice, because for the families that really, have good synergy going and we're just creating a lot, I actually now have the opportunity to upsell them a lot more. And then the families that are like really struggling, like I know that I fulfilled my minimum and it was fine.
Just because you were talking about a kid, I think I watched was it last year or 2 years ago? You actually did the demo of the, like, sort of the mini session, and there was one child who just didn't want to be in front of the camera at all.
It was the B&H one, right? Like for B&H. I wish they recorded that. They didn't. Yeah, I can't believe it's like such a missed opportunity. Yeah. I didn't record it because I was under the impression they were recording, and they said they recorded, but when I followed up after, they didn't. But that could not have been a more perfect example. Like, we brought in
Oh, so I watched it right on time.
Yeah, well, tell me what you saw.
Well, wasn't it, they had like 3 kids or 2 kids? But the younger one anyway just didn't want to be in front of the camera. Like, I think it sounded like the kid was
the baby crying for
Yeah.
the entire hour.
Yeah. And there was no way, like, whether the mom tried to bring it in front of the camera or the dad tried to bring it in front of the camera, just didn't want to be in front of the camera for some reason.
I wish I recorded, because so anytime this happens, honestly, I am shitting bricks, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like, and then of course it's like broadcasting live. But I was so proud of how it resolved, because I was able to get it in the end. And I'm like, if only this was recorded. Like, this was such a great moment to share with people, like conflict resolution, right? But I just had to find out what made the kid okay. I focused on the sister, individuals of the sister. I focused on, like, just dad and sister, just dad. And then, okay, dad, you go soothe the baby, mom come in. And then I did all the other ones first while baby was being soothed. And then I don't remember I tried all sorts of gimmicks and eventually I found something that worked with the baby.
I think so that's why I remembered it was 3 kids. The crying baby thought it was okay to get in it or something like that. So, like, after I think you photographed the other 2 kids, then I think it was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I basically just kept getting the set ready, and then we just inserted the baby, and then found ways to distract the baby. Like, I had mom soothing the baby a lot and just waiting for that moment, and then, yeah.
Has there been a time that, like, you didn't get those photos?
I was just
no.
I've never had a mini session client who I was not able to work with. There was only one time where I had to ask him to come back, and it was because luckily it was right before my lunchtime, and they came in, baby was not having it, or toddler was not having it. But when I realized that it was not going to work, was like, the parents told the toddler, like, we don't have to do this if you don't want to. I'm like, no, you don't have to be in it. Like, I'm like, okay, well, so then I told them, like, well, you know what? Why don't you try to go to lunch? Like, I'm just going to take my lunch break early, go to lunch, and come back, be my last spot. Like, come back at the very end of the day and see if she's up for it. So they took her out, and I guess they were able to have a talk with her. And then when they came back, it was like night and day, and we were able to do it. So that's like the only time where I had to send them away and back. I've had situations where clients came late to sessions, but fortunately, because I work quick, I didn't even realize it, actually, because we end up shooting out of order. The only thing that messes up with is like the naming.
Yeah.
You're like, it's like, wait, was that so-and-so or not? We now have it down, and we haven't had that since, but this was back when I worked solo and I didn't have anyone checking it. When I did it solo, I just had a sheet of paper on the outside with everyone's name and times, and I was like, come in 5 minutes before. And that was also my cue to know to rush these people out. So it was like self-service. They came in, and it was great. I just stayed there, and it's like a photo booth, except with me inside the booth with you. Nowadays, like the issues I have more of is like kids that take a long time to warm up. Like this session, for example, there was 3 sessions I can think of off the top of my head what I was so proud of. Like, there was one girl, the parents, they came in with very low expectations. They didn't think it was even going to work out. And the minute she was playing on her parents' phone, the minute she saw me, she immediately like buried her face into her dad's chest and just would not, like, you could already tell, like, she just really like went into her shell. But then I was like, okay, well, I got down to her level, I was like, oh, like, my name's Caroline, like, what were you playing on the phone? And then and I was like, you can show me, because they took the phone away from her. So I was like, you could show me. And then she like really cautiously like took the phone and then showed it to me. And I'm like, oh, which is your favorite character? And, and then she just warmed up after that. And then she was a ham. It was so funny. Like, her parents were surprised. Like, they'd never seen her like that before, which was awesome. Like, she started directing the shoot. So, okay, now mommy and daddy. Okay, now me like this. And she was so into it. And yeah, they were so pleasantly surprised. And it was such a good feeling. And then another funny one or interesting one is I had one come in this year and they're like, my baby does not like flash. And I was like, this is not a natural light student. And I was like, are you sure? Maybe? They're like, yeah, at school photos, he just had a meltdown over the flash. And I was like, well, maybe, school photo, it's like a dark room. Yeah. And maybe the flash was too, but my room is not dark. So maybe he'll be okay with it. And I was like, it'll be fine. Don't worry. Like, I'm pretty sure it's just like, and then the school flashes, I think tends to be like a loud pop too in it. Flashes. I was like, this will be fine. He stepped in and just started crying uncontrollably. And my team and I looked at each other and we're like, is it really because of the flash? Like, I don't know if it's because of the flash. I think something else is going on here. Like, like anxiety of the whatever. And so then luckily I understand many languages. So I understand her talking to her son in Mandarin, telling him that, oh, like, Auntie, I already talked to Auntie. She promised that there's no flash. How about mommy take a couple pictures first and then you can see that there's no flash, okay? So then, because at first I was like, he's not going to notice flash. I'm going to keep the flash on. But after she said that, I'm like, okay. I was like, tell my assistant, go turn off the flash. And we have to honor that, right? Like, we're trying to build trust here. Turned off the flash. I was able to make the ambient light actually work. And it actually looked good. Like, it looked pretty natural. My ISO just had to be cranked up, but it actually looked okay, like in terms of the quality of light. So I took test shots of mom and she's like, see, no flash. He's still crying. I'm like, I don't think it's a flash. Like, I'm pretty sure it's like they either worked it, like built up too much anxiety about it or something. So then I was like, what if we move the flash? What if the unit itself? Because I was like, what is he afraid of? The light or the umbrella? What is it? She's like, I think he just doesn't like taking pictures. So we moved the umbrella off to the side. He still was crying. And finally, I played peekaboo with him. And that was the solution. I was like, I probably could have done this with flash still, but I had already set up, I didn't want to like, but yeah, we ended up getting great shots and they were also pleasantly surprised. And of course I had to ask, right? I was like, have you done other photo shoots before? And they were all failed attempts.
Oh.
I was like, oh, then that makes me proud. Right?
And
like,
they come back.
Yeah. I was like, I'm like the one that succeeded. This was great.
So, anyone who hasn't seen Caroline's mini session setup and everything, you come up with some amazing sort of backdrops. And so I guess first question is it usually like your team creation or your creation?
It's my ideas.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like my creative outlet. It's one of the few times where, well, not few times, but like I actually get full control over this, which is cool. I'm fortunate, that I've been doing this long enough that I have trust in people, or I've built trust and earned their trust. So they book these sessions without knowing what the set's going to look like. It's a surprise. They show up and see it for the first time. I tell them a color palette and, to come in. That's an improvement. When I first started doing this, like there was no even a color palette. Like you just show up and hope you match the set. But I've learned since, right? I'm like, okay, I'm going to at least give them a color palette. So, and yeah, like they just trust my vision. But a lot of it is, I'm thinking about it all year round. I'm looking for inspiration, like, just what inspires me for the year, what represents the year. So for example, the 2020 was houseplants. That was the theme. Because everyone suddenly became houseplant parents, right? So I did a set that was just full of like a wall of houseplants.
That looked really good though.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
And, I felt like it very encompassed what 2020 was.
What I thought of would be like bread because everyone started making.
Yes, I should have done a sourdough.
So I guess what was the creation from the you had that little mini red car. Where did that come
That
from?
was a year in works because, so I have a client who collects cars. So in 2020, they reached out to me wanting to do a custom holiday set for themselves. So they gave me so they were going to book a private session. I was styling it for them, and they reached out to me late. It was after my mini sessions had already passed. So I styled a custom set for them. They're like, I love vintage cars. Like, can we use one of my cars? So he gave me his inventory of cars and I saw the red car.
Yeah.
I was like, this is amazing. And I was like,
So that's actually a working car?
I had to push it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's why I think I saw one of your Instagram.
But it's like there's no power steering in it.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how safe it would be either. So I pushed it. But at the time, their baby was under 1. So I said, I don't think the baby will fully be able to highlight the car, so why don't we wait until next year? And when we do it next year, then he'll really be able to be in the car, right? Like not requiring you to support him the whole time. So we picked a different car. We styled it. It was super cute. And I was able to incorporate some of my mini sessions. That year I did those giant presents. So we brought it and he had a big, a vintage pickup truck. So then we did the presents in the truck and it was super cute. I liked it. So I already knew we were going to be doing that red car for him the year after, the following year. So then I just brought it up to him. I'm like, would you be open to letting me use this for my other clients too? And he was so happy to share. He's like, yes, please. Please. I would love other people to enjoy this as well. And they are the nicest people, so good to the core, it's just I just feel so honored that I know someone so kind and I feel so hopeful, knowing that there are still kind people in this world, right? For humanity's sake. But yeah, that's how that became about. So it was I already knew more than a year advance that was going to be the design.
Yeah, no, I mean the extent of the sort of the backdrop that you have is is pretty wild.
Thanks. I know. And every year it's how am I going to top it?
Yeah. How do you top it?
It becomes another challenge.
Yes. And then with the holiday ones, because I consider my taste pretty eclectic. I like such a wide range, but I still need to be on brand, right? But I do have this very playful streak in me. So what I have found for my holiday mini sessions, in order to accommodate that, is I have one playful set and one more sophisticated set. Because there are families that come to me now that don't have small children. I have families that come to me that are all adults, I have one client I love, she's been doing my mini sessions for 7 years now, maybe, since her grandma was longer, since her grandma was 89 and 91. She would bring 2 grandmas. One just passed away this year, unfortunately. But she has no kids. She's our age. And she just comes with her 2 grandmas and her mom. It's the sweetest, and I love that. And for the last 10 years, we've just been, and so grandma feels like my grandma. And, but so point being, I couldn't have the set always be fun. So what I loved about the marketing is you can book 2 sessions if you want both. So it's actually increased bookings now because if you want both sets, so I used to give them an option and then we would, I would then feel obligated to shoot 2 sets because I have 2 sets because I hadn't clearly defined, right. A lot of this came out of just my creative outlet, right? I didn't have a plan in the beginning. So now it's 15 minutes in 1 set. So you get to pick. If you want 2 sets, then you book 2 blocks.
What would you say the most common mistakes that other photographers trying to do a mini session but don't do well?
Yeah, I have a whole webinar on 3 common mistakes. It's probably in my free mini session crash course now, but let me see if I can remember them off the top of my head. We've talked about some of it already, but the first mistake for sure that I know is people make them too long. I see a lot of people doing mini sessions for 30 minutes, giving too many photos. And the problem with that is it will hurt your regular session. Like I said, a lot of my mini session clients also book regular sessions too. So if there's no distinction, if it seems too similar, then why am I going to book a full session with you if I'm just going to wait for the mini session, right? You have to be very cognizant of what your mini session is and what it is not. And it has to be very distinct from your full session. And it needs to be truly mini in the sense of time. The second thing I see is people not making enough money from their mini session. So I don't know if it's necessarily a mistake with pricing, how they package pricing. It's not proportional to what their full session is, or they're undercharging too much, because if it's like so much cheaper, then it's like, why would I pay for a full session? Like, let me just book a couple mini sessions, right? So there actually is a ratio of how to do that. And so I do go over that in the course too on how to package it. Another mistake I see is people not doing upsells after. So a lot of my mini sessions, we make money on upselling after the fact. So they are essentially just booking a sitting fee. And then we end up making as much or more on mini sessions than we do on regular sessions. Like per client, we'll spend either as much or more on a mini session than a regular session.
What's the most common upsell? Like just like
The
one-offs?
digital files?
Digital
I
okay.
don't include digital files
Okay.
in the sitting fee. The additional photos that I talked about beyond the 7 is another common one. So that way, if I'm feeling really creative, I don't have to hold back. I could just keep going with it, you know, knowing that there's the option that they will buy these additional photos after. Prints are also really big at the time. Like we have, because this is such an annual tradition, we have some clients who have walls that are being built right now, which is really cool. Yeah.
Oh, you need to
So
go to their places and take photos.
Yeah, I know. I want to, or have them send it to me. But they have one from each year, and they're building on it.
And they'll be very, very, you know,
Similar.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not from all different places.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's fun, you know, having that tradition. And a lot of the kids love seeing Auntie Caroline. You know, they know me by now. We play. Like one of the little girls, like there's one family with 3 little girls that I've been photographing them since they were newborn. And like they couldn't wait to see me to talk about their favorite BTS songs. Yeah. I have the maturity of like a 7-year-old, so I get along with the kids great.
If you don't mind me asking, like, what's the like sort of the sitting fee? Like,
So pricing, so early bird pricing is typically like $550-ish. Like it's usually between like $550 to $600 for sitting fee. So $625. Yeah. It varies a little bit year to year depending on the cost of my set, but it's always hovering around $550 to $600.
and then I think in probably the previous talks or somewhere that I heard from you is that one of the great things about the mini sessions is that in the past 10 years, your rate went up so much in other sessions, like other portraits or in weddings, that they can still come back to you, right?
Yeah, that's what I really loved about mini sessions. And so actually let me go into how I started creating mini sessions. So when I first started out, you know, I had a ton of great clients, right? My business grew really fast. My pricing grew really fast. So at the time that I started mini sessions, a normal sitting fee with me for an hour session was $900. What I found was around holiday time, I was getting a ton of holiday cards from past clients and from family members that were taken by other photographers. And, you know, when like your own family member sends you a picture, I'm like, when'd you schedule a shoot with that person? You know, and obviously it's local, right? So then I was just like, that one like stung. Like the clients I get, you know, but when family was hiring other people, I was like, you didn't even ask me, you know, but I get it. I have this reputation for being expensive, so people don't even bother asking. I realized that I outgrew, I don't know if the word, I priced myself out of what my past clients were, but I really value them, you know, and I want to be part of like their life still. So how do I help them with these holiday cards without undermining my own business. I also acknowledge that they really just want a holiday photo, like a card, one photo for their card. They don't need a whole hour session. So it doesn't make sense for them to book a 1 hour session, right? My mistake in the beginning, I did half hour and I realized it was too long because I'm so efficient, I can do a full session in half hour. So I was delivering full session in half hour. So I was like, okay, I learned to cut it down to 15 minutes, but how do I justify this pricing? You know, when I'm normally $900 for the hour, like, how do I do this? I was like, the only way to make it make sense is if I, for example, I think when I first started, there were 400 a session. So there were 400 for, back-to-back sessions. And I think I did them 30 minutes when I first started, which I then pushed it down to 20 and then now 15. It's like, okay, so that's the first step, right? I need to be able to still make the same amount during the day. So when I did half hour, I wasn't able to get the volume that I needed. I did like maybe 8 sessions in a day, right? So 8 at 400, it's like, okay, 3,200,
And you probably had too many photos as well, right?
Yeah, too many photos. 3,200 is, I know it's a lot of money, but relative to how much I normally make a day, it's not a lot of money, right? So I have to know what my opportunity cost is. I just spent a whole day and I only made 3,200 compared to what I could have made. So then it was like, okay, shortening it and working out the pricing for it. But I found that I'm able to find a happy medium now where now past clients can still afford me. It's a lower barrier to entry to still be able to work with me. New clients who aren't sure if they love me yet, and not willing to spend a full hour session with me can now do a short session with me as, and a lot of them have become full clients in that way. It's like a more affordable way to test me. Yeah. And then more importantly, like I'm able to maintain the past relationships with people. And also for the holiday cards, whether they can afford my full session or not, it comes down to they don't need the full session. They didn't need a 1 hour session for one holiday card photo.
So what would you recommend for photographers who are still kind of new? They don't really have past clients or a client base and they do want to offer mini sessions. What would you recommend for them?
This just comes down to basic business, again, is have an email list. Like you really need to have a list of people. And so build that list up because that's how you're going to market to them. Get out, plant roots in your local area. The people doing mini sessions are mostly going to be local. I actually had people fly in for my mini sessions, which is like, wow, right? Like that's such an honor. Like they booked their travel and the session without even knowing what the set was going to look like. It's like, it's pressure too, though, at that point, right? Like I can't let them down. Like, and I'm such a people pleaser. Like it would just crush me to disappoint anyone. So I just, want to do a really good job for them. And so building that reputation. If you can start becoming like known amongst a small niche of people that you do these cool sets, you want to get to the point where you don't have to do a sample shoot for them to understand, right? Like I don't have to do that sample shoot before selling now. They book without me showing them the set. So network, get in there with, either PTA or mommy blogs and getting your work seen by them and then start really building a look, a niche. And yeah.
No, that's definitely true because like last year, last year was still fairly new after the, pandemic. So my son wasn't he was going to preschool a little bit, but, like he wasn't like fully into it. So I wasn't. And also he only did like half day. So like I was picking him early, so I didn't really run into anyone.
Right.
And now he's in kindergarten and, like, I'm seeing all the parents like over and over again. So last year I had like no one to advertise the mini session to, but now I have like at least about 20 families that I can, they know I'm a photographer and I asked them like, I'm thinking of doing a mini session this year. Like, would you be interested? And they're like, yeah, definitely. Send more information. All right. I think we asked all the questions that we kind of prepared for, unless you have any.
Well, one that I thought of, which I don't know if relevant at all,
Okay.
but like, do you think someone can be a full-time mini session photographer?
The hard part with mini session, but at least for me, what makes it cool is the supply and demand aspect of it, right? Like I only offer it twice a year. Yeah. So if it was offered year round, then it loses its specialness. But the system of how I run mini sessions and how I automate the booking, though, is something that you can utilize to do all of your regular sessions. So my baby's first year, I've now adopted that model instead to just streamline the sales process of it. But if you want to do like the sets, I feel like at most you would be able to do quarterly. But even still, like, I feel like it's a lot for a family. Yeah. I mean, some families would be down, but.
Every season.
Yeah, exactly. The summer season. And then that's like my Magic Paper Studios.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is essentially mini sessions. But yeah, those are seasonal.
Yeah. Yeah. Caroline sells books as well for kids.
Yes, I make them custom
Literally, you
books.
do everything.
I just have like creative ADHD.
Do you feel like whenever you something pops in your head, like, oh, this might be a good idea, this is something to try, do you just go out and try, or?
So my husband and I are complete opposites.
Okay.
My head is in the clouds most of the time. I'm a dreamer. I get excited about things. I'm a risk taker. He is a pessimist. He's worst case scenario guy. If you want to find out like all the possible ways things can go wrong, talk to him, right? So every time I come to him with an idea, he shoots it down. Like guaranteed, I expect him to shoot it down already, right? So I either walk away sulking or we end up like in a heated, like, right? So I feel like that's my test to see if it's worth pursuing, because I have a lot of ideas and ideas come to me often, right? So if I was passionate enough to, go head to head with him about it, then I probably can endure, because, it's hard running a business.
Oh, yeah.
And I always tell people, when you run a business, whatever it is, right? Because I also consult with like just creative businesses too. Whatever you decide, make sure that you love it so much that even when you're sick of it, you will still want to do it. Because guaranteed, you're going to get sick of it. Us at any point, we've gotten sick of photography, right? Like burnout, that's what it's called. And it is bound to happen, right? But we love it enough that we are able to overcome it. And so that's how I see it. If I can continue to like convince him and push him, then it's worth me pursuing. But there's a lot of ideas that are sitting there. Like Magic Paper Studio took me years to get off the ground. Baby's first year took me a couple years as well. And then mini sessions, took years of refinement as well. So, and I'm not afraid to try things too. So I'll try it, and if it doesn't work, then I won't repeat it again.
That's really good. Because like what you described, like how your husband is like how my wife is. And that's what
I think we all need one of those in our life. For us creatives, at least, because we're such dreamers. Like the ideas we have, like some of it's like.
And when I pitched the idea, like the baby first year, and what about we do this like in Vegas? And then she was like, "Oh, that's a good idea." I was like, "This is weird."
Yeah. What's the catch? So baby's first year actually started with day in the life. My first idea was like, let me just come document a day in the life. So I was trying to sell these $4,000 packages where I would come and spend the day with you, and I'll document like every nuance of your life, like from bath to meal time, which is a cute idea, right? It never took off though. So, I had to like think about how to pivot it. I'm like, I think it's too big of a price tag, too big of a time commitment. It's pretty overwhelming, so then I was like, what if we just do shorter segments, and if they want to focus on meal for one of the sessions, we could do that. And bath time for another one, we can do that. And just slowly evolving. So don't be afraid to try things, collect data so you can tell if it's successful. Know what success should look like before you try it so that you know what your goals are and then whether you should continue to pursue it or not.
I have one last question. Obviously, your businesses have evolved so much. So where do you see yourself in the next few years? I'm sure you have a lot of ideas, but where do you want to?
I'm working on like automating my business and scaling to the point where I don't have to work so much. So like associates and I get bored really easily. So if I have to do anything repeatedly, more than once. My motto in business is also I don't want to repeat anything more than once. So if anything is repetitive, then I make a manual for it and hand it off to someone else. Obviously, shooting is not repetitive because it's always a different client, right? Yeah. To a certain extent. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I'm going to go see my mentor about, because I'm trying to, I have a lot of options and I'm not sure where I want to put my energy in right now. Like, do I want to focus more on education? Do I want to focus more on the baby stuff? But I'm embracing it. You know, I always tell people like growth is uncomfortable. Like, so whenever I find myself in like a frustrated state, I know that I am evolving. I'm in a cocoon right now, you know, and I'm working my way out of it. And just to be in it. And it's okay, right? Like, don't try to rush the process and just, so that's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of enjoying the fruits of my labor and how business is pretty like smooth right now. And I'm just trying to be more in tune with myself and understanding where I want to be. But I definitely want to be financially retired in 10 years. So in 10 years, I want to not have to work for money. Like, I want to just do things for fun.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Like, I guess while we're talking about mini sessions, I think we should, like, my family should go in and try Caroline Tran's mini session.
Yeah, I've had a lot of photographers do that. Like, and so I have like a full so the crash course is like a free course, but there's a full course called the mini session roadmap, and that's the one that like lays out the whole system in place. And so I found with that, like, they didn't tell me, but a lot of the students that did that like ended up booking sessions too. And so it's cute to see them, you know, but it's fun to experience it on the other side, just so you can understand and empathize like what it's like, what your clients must feel like. And then also to see me work, because I really do pride myself in how efficient I'm able to get these shots.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
That
so
was
much.
so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I think, in the two episodes we did with Caroline, we've learned so much. I mean, I hear Caroline speak all the time, but it's amazing, like how much I learned. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All the information about mini session crash course.
Yeah, my mini session crash course, my tongue twister, my mini session crash course. You can check it out right here.
Yeah. For you're listening, right here means description.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much.